Hi, everybody. Welcome to Texas Primary Care Consortium's monthly Monday Primary Care Talks. My name is Nishi Singhal. Primary Care Talks is dedicated to interviewing guest speakers from across the country covering a wide range of primary care topics. Each month, the consortium will bring you informative episodes as your go-to resource on all things primary care. This month, we have Kimberly Galloway. Kimberly Galloway is a clinical care coordinator for Focus Youth, a juvenile diversion program at Fort Bend County Behavioral Health Services. Kim grew up in Fort Bend County area, including Missouri City and Richmond, Texas, with her mom, dad, and three older brothers. She graduated from Kemper High School in Sugar Land and is a first-generation graduate from the University of Houston, earning her Bachelor of Science in Psychology. Kim has nearly 20 years of experience working in the mental health field that includes working with the Department of Family and Protective Services, children in foster care, developmentally disabled adults and adolescents, and adults with mental health challenges and/or disorders. She has a passion for providing adolescents with the tools they need to be successful and has a unique and special way of connecting with the youth and their families. Sharing similar backgrounds with the families she serves has resulted in her being more empathetic and gaining trust with vulnerable populations. Kim has two daughters. They're age 18 and 12. We'll get to hear a little bit about them. One is a college freshman, and the other one is in sixth grade. When not working, Kim enjoys traveling with her two daughters, spending time with her family and friends, enjoying self-care activities, and of course, she loves to stream, which we'll get to hear about the show that she's watching right now. Let's go to the show.
Thank you so much, Kim, for joining us today. We're really excited to get to know you and know more about your work. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and then also how your work impacts our primary care system, especially here in Texas?
Hi, so my name is Kim Galloway. I am a clinical care coordinator with Fort Bend County Behavioral Health Services. I work in a juvenile diversion program for adolescents that may experience a mental health challenge and/or co-occurring substance abuse issue. With that, we help coordinate the family and/or the adolescent to services, such as maybe they need therapy services, or maybe they need a psychological evaluation or a psychiatric evaluation. We help connect them to those services within the community. As we understand, there's a transportation issue as well as, other social determinants of health. So we help connect them to services, that are feasible for them. That pretty good success is called the Focus Program. And like I said, we just try to help that family or that child connect them to mental health services, substance abuse services, and even if they need other assistance, such as with education, we try to help in that area as well. I do have about 20 years of experience working in this type of field. I'd like to think I'm pretty knowledgeable. I relate to the families, especially families from low-income areas, various backgrounds. So I'm able to relate. And on top of that, I have had or have a child that has some mental health challenges. And so navigating that, I can help the family to navigate through, where to start and, hey, this is what we need to do. I do have two daughters. One is age 12. She's in the sixth grade. I also have an 18-year-old who is a freshman in college. She's doing very well. First semester, she did very well. I was concerned, but she is doing great. And she's also in another state. But she is adjusting well. My 12-year-old is adjusting well to junior high. Actually, I just had her evaluated by a psychologist due to some concerns that I was having. And so she's recently been diagnosed with social anxiety. So now we're trying to come up with different tools that she can use, as well as her father and I, to help, navigate that whole social anxiety and stuff like that. So we started there, and we'll continue on with the therapy. So that's about my life. I do like traveling with them, spending time with family and friends, doing self-care activities, as well as streaming. I love to binge watch shows.
What are you watching right now? I would love to hear.
Oh my goodness. It's so it's on Max, and it is called The Gilded Age. So it's set like in the 1880s. And it's pretty much like about the old, so people that came from old money, and like how things are going. And then you have the new people. So like with new money, that have made something of themselves, but they're trying to fit into the society. And of course, there, by it being the 1980s, there's also some racial disparities, in there as well. But all in all, it seems to be a really good show. I have a few more episodes in the second season. So that's what I'm watching. And then Yellowstone.
I love it. I'm gonna have to catch that one.
Yes.
Thank you. And I love talking to you because we both get to hear your professional insights and perspective, but also,
Mhm.
of course, your personal insights and perspectives as well. I'm sure many of our consortium members will recognize you, Kim, from our
Mhm.
patient voice video, where
Mhm.
you really shared openly about how you, as a parent of two young girls, how you feel about the primary care system, of course, what you would like to see differently happen, and what you've appreciated so far. And I think so
Mhm.
much of it truly comes down to communication, right? And a sense of trust with your provider. And
Mhm.
so I'm so curious, with both your professional and personal insights and experience, how would you define primary care? I guess high quality primary care. I want to go one step further. How would you describe it in your own words?
Primary care, and it's so interesting that you brought that up, because when I think of primary care, I'm thinking strictly of a pediatrician or my actual primary care provider, someone I'm see like once a year, who's going to look after like your basic health issues. That's what I used to think. But I recently, unfortunately, I had a pretty serious accident last summer. And I had to meet with an orthopedic surgeon, go through the surgery and all that stuff. And I mentioned something about, something my primary care provider. He was like, well, actually, I'm also your primary care provider, because your PCP, your medical doctor, is going to look after this, but she can't look after your fingers, so she can't do what I do. So I'm going to provide that primary care. And then I have an occupational therapist. Well, he is going to provide me that care. So that's also my primary care provider, um, along with the therapist, along with a psychiatrist. So they have their different fields. So in regards to primary care, maybe as a whole, um, what is the main issue? What is the main thing that they're having to deal with? What if it's nothing mentally related? So let's go a different avenue and see about another primary care provider, but someone that's in that field and is knowledgeable. Um, Now, I would say it would it's best to start with your family physician. Let's go with that, because I hate to say primary care provider when I just talked about these other ones.
Yeah.
So let's say it's the pediatrician, or if it's an adult, then your family physician. I would say start there, and then they can, hopefully, if they're a good provider, a good primary provider, give you some insight, to the individual, whether it's them or the child, and give recommendations. I feel like it starts there. And if the family physician or the pediatrician offers, those things, then they're really doing their due diligence. They're not just, oh, they're fine, and just pass them on. So I think it's pretty important for, the family physician or the pediatrician to take their time and explain things. I know they only have a block of time. So whether it's the doctor putting it in what we have as the My Chart, or putting it in their portal, put some information in there, and maybe, that patient can go back in, read it, look, and, if they have any questions, contact the doctor back in that portal. I hope I didn't go off on a rant.
No, no. So I think what you're saying, it almost sounds like, the definition of a medical home, like a patient-centered medical home, which is truly, someone coordinating your care, having, whether it's a person, whether it's a team, like a care team, right? As you were describing, people who can coordinate those exact services. And even if it doesn't come from that exact provider, but they can then coordinate with, that provider who specializes in that kind of service. And so, and this is related to the next question, which is going back to your professional, work of, as you're coordinating the needs for these young people, it almost kind of sounds like you are triaging, right? You're kind of understanding, okay, they need some sort of help with their mental health. They might even need help with their physical needs, right? Like, let's help them with transportation, as you said, or housing. And so, I'm kind of changing my next question a little bit, but really related to, originally I was going to ask, what primary care challenge are you working on? But I almost want to ask, how do you feel like you could alleviate maybe any sort of siloed, if you are triaging these young people's needs, and I can imagine how much you're interfacing with healthcare and with primary care, what do you think is needed in order to break down maybe some of those silos so that there could be a better network out there, and you can understand, okay, this person needs these kinds of health services. This is what I'm going to do. And it's clearer on what needs to happen.
So with that, what I try to make it as easy as possible on the caregiver, and dealing with their child. So of course, depending on that need, I will give them pointers because of what I've had to experience, whether it's with myself or, with my children. I try to get as much information as I can from the caregiver, even, the child. I include them, hey, what would you like, as part of your service? The biggest thing is just having the time with that provider to get that service, or I'm working with the family to say, hey, you only have this amount of time to speak with the doctor. So let's write down, your main questions. Let's see, what you can do, or even, but some barriers, insurance, not having the finances to cover, these services, along with so many other barriers. It's the demographics, a lack of, how can I put it? A lack of services for people that don't look like them. Okay. That's typically, what I will run into. Honestly, I try to just say, hey, I know this organization works with such and such. Or I know this organization, they do this. And I really try to make it a one-stop shop for them. So we partner with Access Health, and they offer medical services, behavioral health services, and other things. So it's just a one-stop shop, for that family. Even down, to the therapy, and they'll try to accommodate, the family, because they're understanding, hey, we know you may work late hours, or, so they'll just try to accommodate, that family. But your biggest challenges, of course, are finances, transportation, and a lack of quality care, if I can put it that way. I try to also be an advocate for them, to say, hey, let's start with the pediatrician first. Let's go from there. If they've never, met or discussed like mental health services, let's say the child does need mental health services. So it's like, hey, let's check in with the pediatrician. They'll know that child. And I think I've stated this before, if they give them the screening for depression and anxiety, kind of gives you a little bit more insight into that. But I really try to help them coordinate and say, you got to speak up for yourself. I will advocate for you, but you also advocate for yourself and or, your child. So it's giving them a voice, right? And being assertive, because this is their child's care, and that needs to be at the forefront, so if we could just have, you get into this field because obviously you want to help someone, no matter what capacity it is. If you're an orthopedic surgeon, if you're a physician, a medical doctor, if you're a physical therapist, I'm just using things that I've had, obviously you got it not just for the money, but obviously you got into this because you have a passion. So if there's a passion, then you should want to help your clients as much as possible. Even if you think, oh, they're not going to comply with this, they're not going to do with this, you still do your due diligence.
Yeah. I love that. And so related to that, what do you feel? And sorry to backtrack just a little bit. I love how you are teaching, the family members, the patients, the young people, like, hey, this is about your health, right? This is about your life, and this is about your health. And so in order to truly serve your own needs, of course, number one, understand what your needs are, and that's what you're helping them with, and you take them to those services. But then number two, then advocate for those needs. And I think that's so vitally important. But also, we can't put the responsibility solely on our patients or on people, right? And so what would you love to see change? Specifically, I want to say healthcare, but specifically really the primary care system. My question typically is, if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see changed, so that that culture of trust can grow, and people, it's a bi-directional thing. You of course have to speak up for your needs, but you also have to feel comfortable voicing those needs. And if you say it once, you say it twice, but then if you feel uncomfortable after a certain point, you're probably going to stop, right? And so what would you love to see as a change in the primary care system in order to better that relationship?
Well, the law, uh, which, I really don't have control over, but I mean, I can always, write and email, our local, what do you call them? Elected official, you know,
Mhm.
um, you can, so the law to change, maybe even having more time with the patient versus this 15-minute block, 20-minute block, um, for the primary care provider to really take their time with their patient. And what I mean by that is it's that whole caring thing. So when they're meeting with the family and they notice something, let's try to lead them in the right direction. Let's make this recommendation, when the primary care provider, does that. It's also having that compassion, even if it's, hey, we only have 15 minutes, I have to go to the next one. Okay, but like, this is what I have, going on, or, whatever. And not just in a mental health capacity, but, even in medical. So if there are any, physical, problems, and it's like, well, I really feel like this needs to be addressed. And so, if the doctor will allow the parent to, or the child to really express, this is what I've noticed. This has been going on for X amount of time. What do you suggest? And if you need to order a CAT scan, an MRI, blood work, please do that. Take these concerns very seriously. You never know what can come up in the blood work or CAT scan or MRI or, any type of scan. You never know. Take it seriously and put that order in. There are some, my children's pediatrician, she may try to find something that may be more cost effective, even though I do have insurance. She may try to find something more cost effective. And if it's not in our, network, but she really feels, hey, I really like this provider. I've gotten so much positive feedback, about this provider. I know they're not in your network, but they'll work with you. Something like that to show that they care, so showing that compassion. We have to wait on the laws to change, right? But I feel in the interim, the primary care provider can give them the tools, or at least help them in one way. Hey, let's start here, and then we'll go from there. Give them a starting point, but don't overwhelm them. But give them a starting point. Let's start here. We will revisit once you've done this.
I like that. Yeah, make a plan. And I think the timing thing, I know as people listen to this and watch this, they're thinking, well, we have to change the way the payment system works. We truly have to change the way that physicians are paid so that they're paid for, quality, and instead of, I mean, that's why the time thing is so linked right now with the payment system, because you have 15 minutes, you have to keep going to the next patient, right? Because that's just how the system is kind of set up. So I'm happy that at the consortium, that is something that is a big focus for us, and we'll make sure to continue focusing on that.
Thank you so much, Kim, for joining us today. That was so helpful. And I love that we got to hear about your perspective on primary care, both from your professional experience, but also your personal one as well. Everyone can contact Kim if you want to learn more, if you have any questions, or if you just want to get in touch with her. Her email is listed in the email from which you found this recording. We also would love to hear feedback from you on what you thought about this episode and just what you think about Monthly Monday primary care talks generally. If you have any people, any guest speakers you'd like to recommend to us, we are more than happy to take your recommendations. If you want to be interviewed yourself, please go ahead and simply just reply to this email. And until next time, this is Texas Primary Care Consortium's monthly Monday Primary Care Talks. Thank you.